Welcome back to GMA3. Former President Trump floating the possibility of full pardons for January 6th rioters if reelected. Meantime, President Biden calling out the former president and his supporters directly.
And here with us now is former House manager in the second impeachment of former President Trump, U.S. Virgin Islands Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett. Thank you so much for being with us. It's so great to have you here in person.
Thank you.
Let's start off. What do you make of the former president's comments that he'd look into pardoning January 6 rioters who stormed the Capitol?
Well, I think that it shows that he enabled those individuals and thought what they did was not a crime. I think it feeds into the narrative that we had that he was actually the person directing them to the Capitol and to the events that transpired on January 6th. And I think that, it just is endemic of who he is as an individual, to think that what happened on that day was actually okay, when we all know that what happened was really one of the most egregious offenses against American democracy.
You've worked at the Department of Justice. I want to get your thoughts on this. When it comes to the president's current legal exposure, you have said there has been a dissipation of noise from Republicans. What does that tell you?
Right. I think that you're seeing across the country in many jurisdictions much of the activities and actions of the former president of Trump are now coming to bear, whether it's in Georgia with criminal grand jury investigations going on related to the election, here in New York City with the Attorney General, Tisha James, bringing potentially civil charges against him and his businesses, and of course what's happening in Mar-a-Lago. We see through the course of actions, the former President Trump actually allowing the Justice Department to expose more of what happened, taking of documents, top secret things. And I think that Republicans recognize that this is the Rubicon that has gone too far, and that siding with the president is actually causing the American people to go against them.
And citing those things that you just listed, when it comes to the possibility of a potential indictment, you say that there is, quote, "There's precedent for criminal prosecution of individuals at the highest level," unquote. Can you elaborate? What exactly do you mean?
Sure. As our now Attorney General Merrick Garland has said, no one is above the law. And American history has shown that through impeachments of judges, of other presidents, and actually criminal convictions of a vice president. Let's not forget that Spiro Agnew was in fact indicted and convicted of criminal charges while he was the vice president. The president had to find a new vice president. And that's not to say that this former president is obviated from all criminal charges or civil charges for actions that he takes against the American people.
I want to turn to something quickly right now. This month marks 5 years since both Hurricanes Irma and Maria devastated the U.S. Virgin Islands. President Biden, his infrastructure law includes more than $160 million for funding that region. How do you believe that money needs to be used to protect the future from storms?
Well, thank you so much for bringing that up. As you stated, our islands, along with Puerto Rico, were completely devastated. Public infrastructure was decimated through those Category 5 hurricanes. And Congress, in a bipartisan manner after the storm, did a tremendous job in the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2018 in providing the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico with not just funding to rebuild how things were at the time of the storm, but making changes in the law, recognizing that there had not been funding provided adequately before that for us to rebuild as we should with resilience. So what we're hoping to do now with the funding we have from the to rebuild of the storm, along with this transformational funding from the president, along with the more recently Inflation Reduction Act, is to rebuild with resilience, to create clean energy jobs, to really transform the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico so we become the shining star in the Caribbean. The Caribbean region is the sometimes the third and the fifth greatest trader with America throughout the world. And so we want to be the place where a lot of that infrastructure, that transshipment and other activity, clean energy happens in the Caribbean region.
Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank
we
you
do appreciate your time.
Have a great Labor Day weekend.